Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and today we have a pretty sad but important question to ask. You see, for the umpteenth time, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas is again soon scheduled to announce the date for elections for the Palestinian Presidency, Legislative Council, and PLO National Council. But of course, such elections have been delayed time and time again over the last 2 decades. Abbas himself now in the 17th year of a 4-year term. That said, while journalists like myself love to quote the aforementioned fact, many using it as a way to show that Israel does not have a partner in peace on the other side, the truth is that sometimes the so-called devil you know is better than the devil you don't, which in this case would be a terrorist organization like Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And that is something that President Abbas knows all too well. So, what is the likelihood of actually holding elections in the Palestinian Authority within the next 6 months? And is Israel prepared for the outcome? Joining us to discuss is founder and director of Palestinian Media Watch, Itamar, and former head of the Coordination of Government Activities in the Territories, or COGAT, Major General Reserves, Eitan Dangot. Thank you both so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
All right, now, Itamar, I'm going to start with you. Is my assessment of the situation correct? Is Abbas, in a sense, doing Israel a favor by staying in power so long, or is he truly just an autocrat?
Well, I don't know if he's doing Israel a favor. Abbas himself has been very, very problematic. There's been no progress to peace. In fact, he's never really agreed to come to peace talks. Israel has had to bribe him repeatedly just to get him to come to the table. And he really came to the table just to accept the bribe. So he has not promoted peace in any which way. He's continued the policy of supporting terror through the paying of salaries to terrorists and glorifying them, naming things after terrorists. So Mahmoud Abbas has not been a peace promoter in any way. And as you said, though, the question is who would replace him? Who is there behind him that could replace him? So these are all the questions that remain to be seen.
All right, Major General?
I would like to say that all this decision of making, first of all, the election for the parliament, and second for the president, I think there are 3 reasons for it. The first is the fact that Mahmoud Abbas is prepared himself towards renew his position or the PA position, especially in a few days when Biden will be the next president of the United States. One of the issues is to create alternative, or on the background will be the preparations for elections. We know that in the past it was failed, and I don't give it a lot of chance. I think that Mahmoud Abbas or Abu Mazen made it to make some insurance for his future activities. Second reason is to create something like quiet in the area of the West Bank, and of course with Hamas, because we have to remember that a few weeks ago, while he made a statement about his withdrawal from all his decisions of renew the negotiations with Israel or the coordination that he's making with IDF officially, I think he has to give back something to the fact, because it was meanwhile in Cairo, was Jibril Rajoub make a lot of efforts for himself and for Hamas to create a new reconciliation procedure with Hamas. And the third reason is to create something like to renew all the problems that he has in the West Bank. But if you ask me if I give it a lot of chances, no. But on the other end, let's see, Mahmoud Abbas is 84 years old, coming towards 85. He's not preparing someone that will be successor. He's giving Jibril Rajoub, that he was one of his opposition guy, and give him the job to deal with Hamas, that he will be like to be quiet on the side, and towards his opposition. I don't see Mahmoud Abbas going without any kind of something happen to volunteer to leave his position. So if you ask me, he had 2 conditions for it. First, that Hamas will agree to the procedure that he make as to the negotiation that Jibril brought on behalf on his name. And the second opportunity that he can escape from this position, that will be Israel. Of course, when we hear about, again, coming back, elections in East Jerusalem, and he knows Israel position, it gives him many opportunities during this process to go outside and to leave it. For meanwhile, he's making something that is good for his benefit policy.
Well, so
yeah,
please.
Yeah, if I may add to that. The significant thing here is really, why did Mahmoud Abbas all of a sudden now announce elections after so many years? And the answer is really very straightforward. The overwhelming majority of Palestinians, high over 60%, I think it's reached up to 67% now, want him to resign. He has lost the support of the Palestinian population. Through more than 3/4 of the population wants elections, and even since he's announced elections, only 1/3 of the population actually believes that he's going to go through with the elections. In other words, they don't trust him. They don't trust him on any level. 80% say that his government is corrupt. So Mahmoud Abbas had to announce elections just because he'd really lost the support of the population, and by claiming to go through the procedure of a democratic process, he's hoping to have some popularity of the people. Now, what's also significant, and when I say he's unpopular, you have to realize that in the most recent polls of December 2020, found that if Abbas were to run against Ismail Haniyeh, who is the head of Hamas, Haniyeh would win. However, if Marwan Barghouti, for example, who's in prison right now, terrorist in jail, if he were to run against Hamas Ismail Haniyeh, he would win. And even the Prime Minister Shtaya would come out even with Ismail Haniyeh. So Abbas turns out to be the least popular Fatah candidate, and very unpopular all around. People think he's corrupt. They want him to resign. So his calling elections is not because he wants elections, but really he lost the trust of the people, and he has to do something. So declaring that he wants elections is a good idea. Whether the elections will really happen, he can blame a million different excuses that could come up between now and the elections that he'll cancel them. But he had to call for elections because he didn't have the support of the people anymore.
All right. Well, I want to come back to some of the things that you just mentioned, but to add a little bit to what you were getting at, there are some who are arguing that Abbas, in a sense, is a prisoner as much as he is a leader, prisoner to his own power because of the enemies that he's cultivated. Case in point, the fact that the Palestinian Authority, or Fatah, his party, was kicked out of Gaza back in 2007. So do you see his staying in power as an extension of that, of him essentially fearing for his life should he step down?
Well, I think he I don't know if he fears so much for his life, but certainly he likes the power. I mean, when did you ever hear of a politician who stepped down willingly? I mean, you just have to look at what's happening in Israel. So he doesn't want to step down because he likes the power. I don't think he's fearing for his life. I just think he's fearing for for having someone else running the Palestinian Authority.
I see.
I would like to add something. You have to be aware that we are already 13 to 14 years the time that already Hamas has taken the regime of Gaza and throw out the Fatah. You don't see so many efforts during the years. All the reconciliation were failed. And from my experience as the coordinator of the government activities in the territories, from many hours with Mahmoud Abbas himself, 4 eyes, I don't see any kind of ambitions of the PA to come back to Gaza. So if I agreed that the procedure is made, is like to build the architectural way to go on with this position. Look about the conditions for debate for the elections. 6 months, you have so many exit points during these 6 months with all the conditions, with Israel, with the things that he made. Look, he changed the elections. First of all, on his time, he was first elected as a president, and then was the elections for the parliament. Now we say, first of all, we will go to the parliament and then to the president. So it means he has a lot of waiting places to make an exit and to change his position. I don't see, and I'm not agree, because to the fact that he's not so popular. This is the reality in the West Bank, in Gaza. People are making in the polls what they are asking. Of course, it's not so popular, but it's 14 years. Did you see any kind of demonstrations and bubbling situation to move and to change by the population? No. I think that is why, because he controls very well with his close circle the situation in the West Bank. The economy there is not so bad. If you compare it, of course, to Gaza and to the other Arab countries around us, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and the others, and the population would like to see maybe another way of a party instead of Fatah. But if you ask me, I don't see a chance now that it will be replaced and will be any change to his position. He make it to, as I said, to open doors for the international activities, to make some quiet situation, to send his opposition like Jibril Rajoub to continue negotiation. And don't forget another thing, Hamas is going by itself to elections in March. So he has to see and to wait. In my eyes, when you're judging Abu Mazen way of controlling and policy, I don't see making mistakes recently. The step of returning back to coordinate with Israel, the step of going back with any kind of preconditions to the United States new president, returning the ambassadors to the Emirates, it means that Abu Mazen is looking everywhere, and what he would like is continuating of his regime, and time will give us. If you ask me, Israel is not going to election. The government is not able now to create something new for allowed or not allowed. So it means we have to wait, and time will tell us what's going. I'm pessimistic about it. And another thing, don't forget, Hamas is a terror organization, and it's recognized as a terror. It built its power to continue its terror activities. And around Abu Mazen, he has another kind of protecting its situation, that the international community looks at Hamas as a terror organization and will not agree that Hamas will be, let's say, on power without changing, recognizing Israel and all the things that are even today refusing to do.
Well, so all that said, I mean, as you have both sort of alluded to earlier, he can't stay in power forever. He's getting older. His health is starting to deteriorate. So would it be better for the region, for Israel, for the Palestinians, that Abbas stay in power until his death and leave the chips where they lie? Or would it be better for him to step down and maybe try to at least influence the political scene there?
Well, let me just say that it really depends on, of course, who Fatah will appoint to be his replacement. You've got a number of possibilities. That is, who would be his replacement in the next government? You've got Mahmoud al-Alul, who Abbas appointed as his deputy to Fatah. You've got Jibril Rajoub, who certainly wants it, who lately has gotten a lot of exposure because he's been the one who's been negotiating with the Hamas. As well as other things. And he was also the one responsible for fighting against normalization, for organizing the whole campaign against normalization. These were both very significant things, gave him a lot of press time, a lot of publicity. Neither of these people are people who have expressed serious interest in peace with Israel. You've also got Tawfiq Tarawi, who would like to be a leader, but I don't think he has much of a chance. You've got all these different names of people. We don't have anyone who has really come out and said we're in favor of the normalization with the Arab states that Israel did. We want to have peace and normalization. When we hear that from a Palestinian who's in a significant position, then we'll know that there's a leader who could possibly bring the people to peace. I don't think the same way things didn't change much from Arafat to Abbas, any of those leaders who I just mentioned to you, I don't think there would be much of a change in behavior, no matter who Fatah would put into power after them right now. Hopefully, maybe in the next few years, there will be someone else who will come up with a different message to the people, a message of peace, a message of reconciliation. We haven't heard yet from anyone significant, and that's the tragedy, I think, of the Palestinian Authority leadership.
Well, would anybody, would anybody within the... Yeah, go ahead, Major General.
I would like to add something for this that I agree about the names, but let's see. Mahmoud Abbas is now looking for his legacy after the day after he's not here. And by it, he's making this kind of procedure to support his legacy as a leader who didn't divide and give a chance, etc. Secondly, Mahmoud Abbas, as a regular leader, is not building his successor. My estimate that if you are looking about the day after, it will be difficult days, but it will be something that will be built by 2-3 people that will put someone as a temporary, like a temporary president, but temporary is something also being constant sometimes. But at that case, I don't see the names that were mentioned with a lot of chance. I think that Mahmoud Abbas built today a leadership that is supported by its security forces like Jibril, like Majid Faraj and others that can support him. And don't forget that in the Emirate, you have his main enemy, Mohammed Dakhlan, which is one of those who support the normalization with the Gulf countries. So if you ask me what will happen, I don't see a crash in the West Bank, but I see bubbling situation for 1-2 years till it will be an established situation with PA. And I don't see even by that Hamas will, let's say, can enter to this position. And don't forget Israel. Israel will not allow Hamas to be in such a situation, again involving the West Bank, because the price cost for Israel is very, very deep. And if we will allow it, it will be a very unpleasant situation in the West Bank. So that's the reason we have to keep it. And today, if you ask me, Mahmoud Abbas with his people are much more convenient for Israel present policy. And till you don't agree
so I have to ask.
Position.
Well, so I have to ask, Major, what can Israel ultimately do? Again, with Abbas out of power sooner or later, what can Israel really do to make sure that relations between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, at the very least, stay at the status quo?
I think that what Israel has done is, what you're not doing today, it will not work you in a situation like the day after Abu Mazen. So today, the context or the coordinations and the way of talking are giving a lot of advantage. I cannot be sure that it will be exactly the day after Abu Mazen go, but Israel has to build and to create a structure and the infrastructure that the day after Abu Mazen, we have on one end, of course, the military options when will be problems in the West Bank, and we never give the responsibility in Area A and others to the Palestinians automatically. We are there, can be involved in each case, but on the other end, we have the contact with some people in the Palestinian authorities, in the West Bank, that can, let's say, balance in some places situation. I don't see all the West Bank bubbling. It depends. For example, north part of the West Bank in Hebron is more identified as Hamas area, can be more problems, and in other places. But at the end, if you ask me, we have sensors, we have tools. We cannot be sure. It's not insurance.
Sure.
I estimate that will be problems, but I think that we have enough way to control it and to balance the situation. The most important thing, put red lines towards Hamas as a terror organization and not put a leg inside the West Bank till it change his agreement to recognize Israel and to join the agreement between Israel and the Palestinians that were signed on Arafat.
So, Marcus, back to you for a minute. We heard mention just now of Mohammed Dakhlan, who is comparatively a lot more moderate. He says that he's for the normalization agreements. And I think that even here in Israel, we've seen a shift in the Arab-Israeli electorate, even more towards the Likud, really, in the wake of these normalization agreements, because they see some of the opportunities that are going to be afforded to them because of that. Is it possible that such a shift might happen in the Palestinian Authority?
Well, I'll tell you, the polls from a month ago said that if Dahlan were to run on an independent list, he would take about 20% of the Fatah vote. That's not enough yet to be leadership. But again, he's not really here, and it's hard for him to get. So if he's getting 20% popularity amongst Fatah without even being here, that's an optimistic sign, assuming he really is the moderate that he's been reported to be more recently. There are, I've been doing a lot of meetings with Palestinians lately, met with foreign diplomats together with Palestinians who've expressed their outrage at the Palestinian Authority, how the Palestinian Authority is ruining the lives of Palestinians, foreign delegations of members of parliament, for example. And these people tell me that there is a sizable population in the Palestinian Authority areas who not only are sick of the leadership, but would really just are fed up with all the hate education, are fed up with the brainwashing children to want to be martyrs, etc. The problem is that nobody who has these opinions can organize into a real opposition. When asked how many people support your opinions, he says, I'm afraid, I don't know because I'm afraid to let people know my opinions. So when you've got people who are moderate, who are afraid to come out and express moderate opinions in the Palestinian areas because they might end up in a Palestinian Authority jail, you know we have a problem. There are Israeli groups that meet with Palestinian groups. It used to be on a regular basis before the COVID problems, and I've spoken to Palestinians who told me they had to stop going to these groups because they expressed pro-peace opinions, they expressed anti-PA opinions, and people were warning them, and they got warnings that they better not go anymore. So this is the challenge. The Palestinian Authority tries to present itself as some kind of a free environment, and the world likes to perceive them as a democracy. Something has to be done to enable this I don't know what percentage of people, but all these people who are sick of the leadership, sick of hatred, sick of fighting, sick of their school books, sick of a media that poisons the children, and somehow helping them organize and create a real opposition without having to threaten themselves.
All right, well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today. Thank you, Major General Eitan Dangot and Itamar for joining us. Your insights are very much appreciated, and for all of those watching at home, please tune in next time on Insider for more in-depth analysis on everything Israel. If there's a topic that you want us to cover next, please let us know about it in the comment sections online. I promise you we check. Finally, remember that for more news from Israel, follow ILTV on Facebook, like us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube, and visit our website at iltv.tv. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.